Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving deep into excerpts from Pietro Ubaldi's The Law of God.
Right, and this isn't some ancient text, is it? It's based on radio talks and articles from the late 50s.
Exactly, 1958, 1959, building on his earlier stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission here is to really get to the core of Ubaldi's Law of God. What did he mean by it?
Oh.
His ethics, how it actually, applies to us.
And what's striking is his approach. It feels quite rational, based on experience, not just pure dogma.
Definitely. So yeah, let's explore these ideas. They might be quite revealing.
Okay, so first off, Ubaldi's aim.
Yeah.
He explicitly wanted to translate these, let's say, complex ideas into simple terms.
Accessible language, right.
Yeah.
No jargon needed.
Precisely. No need for a background in science or, high culture. He wanted to give practical guidance for a better life.
Like a user manual for living well.
Kind of, yeah. And importantly, he respects all religions. He's not trying to replace anything.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to offer a logical, experiential way to see the divine law within them.
So he's looking for the common thread, not trying to start a new religion or anything.
Exactly. And he was quite firm on how these ideas should be shared.
Oh, how so?
Well, he believed a truly evolved person avoids aggression, avoids arguments to force their views.
Right. The method reflects the message. Sort of.
You could say that. Your approach shows your own level of understanding, he thought.
That makes sense.
And this leads to what he called the subtle art of living in harmony with this law.
A subtle art.
Yeah, and this harmony, for Ubaldi, is basically the secret to happiness. It's not just knowing rules, it's living them.
So it's less about strict obedience and more about like an intuitive alignment, like an artisan working with their materials.
That's a good way to put it. True happiness comes from that deep alignment with these, fundamental principles.
Okay, so what are these core principles?
Fundamentally, he says the law is about justice. And he connects that directly to our desire for happiness and avoiding suffering.
Which is universal, right? We all want that.
Absolutely. And law, he argues, is set up to reward effort in our evolution, in our growth.
So like a cosmic system where personal growth pays off in well-being.
You could see it that way. And significantly, it's presented as rational, logically demonstrated ethics.
Not blind faith or fear.
No. It's based on principles of perfection, goodness, where every action has a consequence, a logical one.
Cause and effect with a moral compass built in.
Like-
What you do matters.
Right. And he insists this isn't just theory. He claims it's based on 50 years of his own experimental observation.
His life, other people's lives.
Yes. Corroborated by witnesses, he says.
That's quite empirical for this kind of topic. Like, look, I've seen this work.
It is. And again, he felt he wasn't inventing something new. He saw himself as restating the essence of the Gospels, advanced religions.
But giving them a logical, experiential foundation.
Exactly. So for listeners, it's not about ditching beliefs, but maybe finding a deeper, rational why behind them.
Getting the framework behind the guidance. Okay.
And this framework, Ubaldi says, has real practical implications. It doesn't just guide conduct.
It explains things, even suffering.
Yes. It helps understand the why behind events. It illuminates the path, gives knowledge, certainty.
So it's a map, not just a compass, explaining the terrain of life.
Precisely. And he connected this to his time, the late 50s. He saw an emerging understanding of God, of the law, happening even in science.
Moving beyond just religion.
Yeah, like science and spirituality might be finding common ground.
Which suggests maybe reason and faith aren't totally separate tracks.
That seems to be his view, and this leads him to talk about destiny.
Destiny. Fixed fate.
Not quite. He sees it more as a personal plan that unfolds based on your past choices.
So our past actions really do shape our present reality.
Right.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It is. He stresses the link between past, present, future lives through sowing and reaping.
Yeah. The sowing is free, but the harvest is obligatory. I think I read that. That's the one. Freedom in action, but consequences are unavoidable.
We're the gardeners, and we eat what we grow, essentially.
Pretty much. And suffering, he doesn't see it as punishment.
No. Then what is it?
It's necessary feedback. A course correction,
Yeah.
The law guiding you back towards understanding.
So pain is a signal, like wrong way.
Exactly. A signal you're out of alignment. Rebelling against the law just leads to more self-inflicted suffering.
But the law itself.
It can't be destroyed. It's fundamental, like gravity. You could ignore it, but...
The consequences are still there.
Right.
Okay. What about progress, then? Human evolution.
Well, Ubaldi believes our individual will, and our collective will too, operates within the law's limits.
So free will exists, but it's not absolute. Like rowing a boat on a river, you choose the direction, but the current is there.
That's a good analogy. And he says our present will can correct past negative effects.
So we can change course, make amends. Yes, but always within the pathways the law defines. It's never too late to adjust.
And he mentioned pain being universal.
Yeah.
Affecting everyone.
Right, because human defects, flaws, exist at all levels of society, so the law's correction is impartial. No one gets a free pass.
Makes sense. He also talks about different planes of existence.
Mm-hmm. Governed by different principles. What seems like paradise at one level might feel like, well, hell from a higher perspective.
It's relative then. What satisfies you at one stage might not later on.
Exactly. And the struggle for life, he sees that as typical of lower planes, something to evolve beyond.
So what's the real takeaway from life, according to him? What lasts?
Experience and wisdom. That's what you carry forward, he believes, into future lives.
So this life is mainly about learning, internal growth.
Yes, material stuff. He calls it school materials.
School materials, like tools for learning?
Yeah, tools to learn proper use, order, self-controlled discipline. Misuse them, the law removes them, use them well.
You retain the benefit. But attachment is bad.
He argues attachment hinders learning. Detachment paradoxically leads to a kind of abundance, inner abundance.
Letting go opens things up. Interesting paradox.
Then he contrasts egoism with collective living. That's a fundamental error, he thinks, the egoistic view.
Focusing only on me.
Right. That lower plane psychology leads to conflict, destruction. It's ultimately self-defeating.
He saw egoism as immature, spiritually speaking.
Very much so. True progress needs us to see life as collective. We're interconnected. Harming others harms yourself.
But can ecosystem damage one part, the whole thing suffers.
That's the idea. Your well-being is tied to everyone else's.
And the shocks, the suffering we face.
He says they're necessary, actually, to develop intelligence. Hardship is a teacher.
Like challenges that force you to think, build resilience.
Precisely. And the law tailors these lessons. What's a huge shock for one person might be minor for someone more developed.
So the lessons get gentler as we learn.
Hopefully.
That's the hope, yes. As intelligence and sensitivity grow, the experiences can become lighter. He connects this to our time now, doesn't he? With all our power.
Yes. Humanity's increased power urgently requires, parallel growth in intelligence and goodness.
Otherwise.
We risk self-destruction or losing those powers. It's a huge responsibility.
Okay, how about building the self, our personality?
Ubaldi says, our individuality, good and bad, is built brick by brick through repeated thoughts and actions over time.
So our current personality is like a reflection of our past habits.
Essentially, yes. You are the sum of your past choices, solidified into character.
And suffering in this life, it has a purpose related to that.
Definitely. It originates from our negative qualities, our defects, and its purpose is correction.
So we're responsible for our own destiny, our own suffering even.
Ultimately, yes. Blaming others doesn't help. Rebellion just makes it worse.
So the path is acceptance, responsibility, and self-correction for a better future.
That's the core of it. Resignation to the situation, but active work on oneself.
What about those upside-down values like blessed are the meek? That seems counterintuitive.
He suggests there's a deep logic there, rooted in the law. It's not about weakness being good.
But about a different kind of strength, a different way of operating.
Exactly. Understanding power differently. He sees evil, pain as transient things. Imperfections on the path, meant to be corrected, transformed.
Not permanent fixtures.
No. And again, he stresses this isn't blind faith. It's conclusions from theories tested by experience. Practical utility is the aim.
Trying to explain life's problems objectively.
Right. And ultimately, he believes God's wisdom, goodness, justice, they prevail over human arrogance and injustice.
Injustice is temporary, on the surface.
Yes. Everyone eventually gets what they deserve, good or bad. The scales balance.
Let's talk about the mechanism of destiny and habits. How does that work?
He explains our present personality comes from past thoughts and actions that have become automatic, like stored in the subconscious.
Ingrained habits.
Right. And these habits create tendencies, impulses that shape our future. That's our destiny in action. It often runs without conscious thought.
He uses an analogy, doesn't he? Like training animals.
Yeah. Repetition forms subconscious habits in them, and it's the same for us.
So our good qualities, bad qualities, our environment even, we build them through free will?
Yes. And they become our fatal destiny until we consciously work to change them.
Fatal destiny. That sounds grim.
Well, only until corrected. He also uses the image of a snowball or an avalanche.
How so?
Repeated thoughts, actions gain momentum. A small negative habit, repeated, can become this huge force, hard to stop.
Which really highlights being mindful of even small things. They compound.
Absolutely. And this cause and effect web is intricate, spanning lifetimes.
Wow. So each moment is
Both a result of the past and a cause for the future. It's continuous.
a constant flow of action and consequence.
And until those past negative impulses are exhausted or consciously corrected, our thoughts and actions are often determined by these old habits.
We carry the past until we deal with it.
Right. He uses that analogy of a bank with infinite gold reserves representing God. Positive actions build credit. Negative actions create debt. And it all gets accounted for eventually.
That long-term view really emphasizes the value of positive actions. They keep accumulating.
Exactly. And the debts too, unfortunately.
Can we predict the future then, based on this?
Ubaldi suggests yes, to an extent. By observing present conduct yours, or societies, you can see the trajectory according to the law.
You can see where things are heading if the pattern continues.
Precisely.
What about hell? Does he talk about
I mean,
that?
he does. He thinks maybe traditional ideas are outdated, but the core principle
Of the law reacting to negative actions.
that remains valid. The logical consequences are real, even if it's not a literal fire pit.
So intellectual evolution doesn't erase accountability? You can't think your way out of consequences.
No, cleverness doesn't negate the need for balance, for correcting harm done.
And humanity's relationship with the law. We tend to fight it.
He observes that, yes. We try to fight it, find loopholes, treat it like an enemy.
Resisting the natural harmony.
He calls it a kind of madness, trying to outsmart God, basically. The law is impartial. It can't be manipulated.
And he brings in Christ's non-resistance here.
Yes, as a practical condemnation of the world's usual attack-defense system.
It operates on a different level.
A higher plane, yes. It understands that reaction is the law's domain. Our human reactions are often less powerful, just perpetuating negativity.
So true understanding of the gospel, for Ubaldi, means seeing the error in how the world handles conflict.
That seems to be his point. It's a radical shift in approach.
He also contrasts short-term versus long-term views, right?
Yeah.
The world versus the gospel.
Exactly. The world focuses on the immediate, the practical, in a sensory way. The gospel's principles are long-term, far-reaching.
Which makes them seem impractical to someone only looking at the next step.
Right. And resisting the effort to evolve, to embrace these principles. He says it's often ignorance, not malice.
And pain is the signal, the wake-up call.
A providential indicator of that folly, yes.
What about divine providence? Is that just random intervention?
No, he says it operates according to the law's rules. It might not be obvious if you haven't met the conditions, haven't aligned yourself.
So it's part of the system, not outside it.
Mm-hmm.
And requires a higher view to see.
Yes, it's a long-term phenomenon, needing a certain intelligence, a certain perspective to perceive.
Okay, shifting focus a bit. Social issues, power dynamics, does the law apply there too?
Absolutely. He says the law operates universally, even in politics, the struggle for power.
The instinct to dominate. That's part of it.
It can be, especially in less evolved states. The law allows it as a stage, where personal gain is the driver. Achieving power through effort might even seem just at that level.
But it's cyclical. Power shifts.
He highlights that, yes, using the French Revolution as an example.
Louis XIV's strong rule versus Louis VI's weakness.
Right. Forceful rule was accepted at one stage. Later, weakness allowed pent-up injustice to erupt. When the powerful lose virtue and the oppressed gain strength, things change.
So societal power isn't static.
Not at all. He also tells that story, The Pilgrim and the Wolf.
Ah, yes, the violent figure overcome by non-resistance.
Exactly. Illustrating how love, a higher spiritual force, can shift things from force to peace, cooperation. It represents a different system emerging.
What about religion itself, its evolution?
He really stresses that individuals within all religions need to focus on becoming good, honest people.
Not on interreligious rivalry.
Definitely not. The true purpose should be unification, peace. Religion failing at that is missing the point.
But the exclusivism we see,
He sees that as reflecting our current evolutionary stage, a kind of herd instinct.
contrasted with an ideal of What? Universality.
Yes, based on impartial understanding, free coexistence, a spiritual unification where the shared essence is recognized. Dogmatism, condemning others, that's a major error.
And pioneers, heretics, are important for this evolution.
Vitally important. Christ is the prime example, advancing understanding beyond the orthodoxy, often facing conflict.
Progress often involves challenging the status quo,
Always. And he ties this back to love one another.
not just sentiment.
No, a law of a higher biological plane, he argues. Something humanity must evolve towards. Egoism just keeps us stuck in collective suffering.
Living the gospel is hard, but aligns with our progress instinct.
Yes, driven by suffering's lessons and advancements in knowledge.
So, wrapping up his view on the law, what's the final summary?
The law of God is the central point, the path to salvation, fulfillment. It's God's thought, God's will, the fundamental rule.
And the content, the rules themselves?
Widely known, he says. 10 Commandments, Gospels, etc. The focus isn't a new moral code.
It's understanding its realness, its unavoidable consequences.
Exactly. Knowing the law makes you more responsible. Suffering is self-sown. The path forward is self-correction.
And how long do we need these painful lessons?
He contrasts divine law for our benefit, just loving with human laws, often self-serving, leading to evasion. Rebelling against divine law only hurts yourself.
And this feeling of chaos in the world.
It's an illusion, he says. Like apparent stillness is actually high speed. Our lives are governed by the law's order, even if unseen. Resistance causes the friction, the suffering.
But the ultimate aim is positive.
The well-being and happiness of the individual. And the path is aligning with the law.
So the big takeaway seems to be, the power to create happiness is actually within us, through understanding and living by this law.
Absolutely. And it's an individual journey. Start living these principles for your benefit, regardless of others, regardless of religious labels.
God judges justly, not based on affiliation.
Right. By understanding these mechanics of good and bad, cause and effect, you can potentially avoid pain, achieve happiness. It's a true science of living.
A science for a more evolved future.
Yeah. And that leaves us with a thought. Maybe that deep desire for happiness we all feel isn't a delusion. Maybe it's a promise.
A promise to be fulfilled through conscious evolution, aligning with the law.
That seems to be Ubaldi's message. So the question for everyone listening is, what part will you play in your own journey from darkness towards light?
A powerful question to end on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.